Right. So, what does it mean to be wealthy? Part one. There's two parts to this. This month, we embark on what I would like to be our annual Friendship Month. I'd like April to be our annual Friendship Month. And I thought about this because we're having an open house. We're inviting our friends. And we're going to be bringing new people to introduce them into what it is we do here. And so this is the month where we do bring someone that maybe hasn't been here before. And we're celebrating, this is great, our grand opening. This is so awesome. So April's going to be our celebratory month from this time on. And this month, we will focus on what it means to share the love felt within the walls of this community, share the light of our individual hearts illuminating and radiating into the world, and share the wealth of understanding from a deep spiritual perspective. And since financial uncertainty is on our hearts and minds, and actually of so many in our world today, our focus each week will be looking at abundance from that deeply spiritual perspective. You'll notice some of the books I have here. Do we have anybody that's new to religious science? Not really. I think everyone's pretty well versed in religious science. But I'm going to go over a couple of things just as reminders. So we are the Center for Spiritual Living, Modesto. You've noticed we've changed our our name. We used to be Religious Science or Religious Science International, or there were a variety of names out there. There was Science of Mind. There was the Science of Mind Teaching Center. There was the Creative Living Center. There was just all these different names, but we were trying to say the same thing. So they got together and they rebranded, and they came up with the Center for Spiritual Living. And we're one of many, many. You can go to many towns and find the Center for Spiritual Living. But we all teach the science of mind principles. We fall under that umbrella of New Thought, and we're founded in the mid-1900s by Dr. Ernest Holmes. And what we offer is based on the teachings and wisdom of the ages. We're a New Thought organization, and the New Thought chart, which I actually have here. I don't know if you can see much of this, but it's out there if you want to take one. I have one here too. Our New Thought chart really does show, it traces back to the beginnings of the New Thought movement. But we know that it really goes back even further than that. We know that there's Aristotle and Plato and Plotinus and all of the Greek philosophers. From the beginning of time, there have been those who have known these truths. So we go way back. But this is pretty much from where we are in the 1800s transcendental movement and on up. So if you do want a copy, I do have some out on the table.
Should the lower line, should the United and the International?
Yeah, we need to change that now. We need to change that into CSL, so I'll be doing that. Thank you. Good catch. So, in a nutshell, we are a blending of Eastern and Western spiritual philosophies that help us to, 1, create a personal, intimate relationship with God, realizing that it is the God of our being. 2, take full and complete responsibility for our lives because we come to realize that we really are truly powerful creative beings. 3, learn to live a life of balance, harmony, joy, and love. And 4, be a beneficial presence on this earth. I love the words of our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, to describe the origins of religious science. And I have quoted him before on this, and I keep it on my iPhone because it's just such a great paragraph. The philosophy of religious science is nothing new to the world. It is rather a synthesis of the greatest concepts that have ever come to the mind of humankind. The laws of Moses, the love of Christ, the ethics of Buddha, the morals of Confucius, and the deep spiritual realization of the Hindus all find an exalted place in the philosophy of religious science. So with that overview, let's get on to our topic at hand. We read in the scripture, and I'm talking about the Bible, that Jesus said it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than it is for a wealthy man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so one more quick new thought tutorial before we go on. We viewed Jesus as the master teacher, the supreme example, not the supreme exception. We believe that when he came here and said, this too you can do and more, we took him at his word on that. We believe that he came here to show us the way. He's the way shower. So are you all familiar? I know not everyone's real familiar with the Bible, but are you all familiar with that passage about the eye of the needle? Have you all heard that before? You say, yeah, okay. I believe really that is been one of the catalysts for poverty consciousness for millennia. I think they took that one little line out of there and just focused on that, which can be the issue with the Bible sometimes, is that, you get carried away with just one little line. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all cited Jesus as making this proclamation, and it is in the context of a rich young man who asked Jesus what he had to do to follow him. Jesus told him, among other things, that he needed to sell all of his possessions to the poor, and then he could become a follower. All three Gospels say that the young man walked away sad, even depressed, because he had great wealth, and apparently he didn't want to give it up. This appears in three Gospels, but I love the expansive portrait that Mark and Luke paint, and Mark paints it the most expansively. Preceding and following the famous quote is really where the powerful stuff lies. When Jesus' surprised disciples asked why he had told the young man that he had to sell all of his stuff in order to follow him, he replied, before saying those famous words, "My sons, how hard is it for those who trust in their wealth to enter into the kingdom of God?" In other words, it's pretty darn hard for those who look to their wealth as their God and try to find their security and their happiness in it to have a deep connection with the Creator of all good and to live in flow and harmony with it. Because remember, our wealth is just an effect. Our wealth is what we see out there. Our wealth is already what has come into form. It doesn't even touch the possibility and the substance of all that could be. So if you're just focused on that, remember what you focus on, you get more of. But if you're only focused on what you've already created, then you're not keeping your mind on what can be created. You have a question?
Well, I'm just curious. No, I'm just. Well, he did say sell all your possessions. He didn't say give it away. So he must have. If he sold it, he must have retained some sort of wealth.
Share it.
Perhaps. Well, maybe he was talking more about not having it hold you down. Because do you own your possessions or do they own you? I mean, if you have a house, you have to care for it. If you own a boat, you got to take care of it. So maybe his thoughts there were, you're right, sell it so that you're not owned by your possessions. But we'll go on. Okay.
You don't mean that literally.
Mothers.
A few verses after the famous saying, Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, there is no man who leaves houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or fields for my sake and for the sake of my gospel, who shall not receive now, in this time, 100-fold houses and brothers and sisters and maidservants and children and fields and other worldly things, and in the world to come, everlasting." Because Jesus spoke in metaphor and parables, it seemed logical that he would have been speaking metaphorically here as well. So I think there's more of an explanation. I don't believe that he literally meant, was saying to leave all of this, since in the next breath he said you're going to get it all back 100-fold. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But in another very powerful way of him saying what he had said once before, which is, and this is the one we need to pay attention to, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things will be added unto you." When you place your focus on spirit, all else will come to you. So listen to this expansive interpretation of Jesus' words, taking into account what he said right before and right after the famous statement. "It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than it is for a man who looks to his wealth as his God to find in it his security and happiness. But when he looks to God first, he will find his wealth expanded 100-fold." Does that sound a little better?
Yeah.
I think it's put just a little bit better. But now, I think it's important that we look at the word wealth. This is a rhetorical question, but I want to ask if anyone had an internal adverse reaction to the idea of talking in church about creating wealth. Does that make anyone cringe or go, makes you, okay, well, you're honest. I think that's great. Maybe it's okay to talk about abundance or even prosperity, a little vague, more vague. But what about creating wealth? Well, if that makes you cringe a little bit, we may still be riding that camel. But I'm going to suggest that today's the day we get off that camel, okay? We're going to get off of it. Because what is wealth really? The most perfect definition of it is found in the Revealing Word, which is a metaphysical Bible dictionary. And this is beautiful. It says, true wealth is a state of consciousness. The consciousness of God as our supply. Spiritual wealth expresses itself as faith, love, wisdom, substance, joy, and so on. So our exploration this entire month will be about living in a state of consciousness. Thoughts, feelings, beliefs, attitudes, values, actions, words that is firmly steeped in the kingdom of God, or spirit, or whatever, universal mind, creative force, whatever you feel comfortable. And the way I decided to go about it is to pull some of my favorite New Thought books on the consciousness of wealth off of my shelf, which was so much fun, and cull from them the most brilliant gems and put them together for us. And I also pulled from some other sources that I have as well. But those books include The Essential of Ernest Holmes, which is what we're studying in our class right now, which is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I would recommend anyone and everyone read it. It's great. Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth. We did that class too. That's an awesome book as well. The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwin Gaines. She's kind of like the Paula Deen of spiritual philosophies, don't you think? She's just something. The Wealthy Spirit by Shelley Campbell. She's pretty awesome too. So today I wanted to look at just one concept, and we'll do more next week in part 2. To firmly establish ourselves in the consciousness of wealth. Today I want to explore the truth about substance, to use the title of Eric Butterworth's first chapter in Spiritual Economics. In that chapter, Butterworth quotes from Emily Cady's Lessons in Truth. She wrote, God is not a being with qualities or attributes, but God is the good itself, coming into expression as life, love, power, and wisdom. What she is saying here is that God is not loving. God is the allness of love. God is not wise. God is the essence of wisdom. God is not the dispenser of divine substance. God is the ever-present substance in which we all live and move and have our being. And that is the subtle but vitally important key on which the entire structure of spiritual wealth rests. So I want to say that again. God is not the dispenser of divine substance, but God is the ever-present substance in which we all live and move and have our being. The whole of God, the entirety of God, is present at every point in every space at the same time. In every point. It's present everywhere. Not just some of it, but all the substance of the universe is present at any and every point. In other words, God doesn't come and go. God is always there. We're the ones who move, don't we? God doesn't move substance from God's storehouse up there to fill your need down here, right? God is always present, totally present as a presence. So you may be praying for healing, but the truth is the wholeness of God is present in, around, and through you now. You may be praying for greater love in your life, but the whole of God as love is present in, around, and through you now. You may be praying for greater abundance, but the whole of God as substance is present in, around, and through you now. Does this make any sense? Am I making any sense here? If this is a stretch for you to think about, given the fact that we are human, right? Just think of this. Is there any point on Earth, anywhere, where gravity has more or any less pull on you than it has right now? Can you travel to Arizona and think, wow, I'm going to be floating because the gravity is not as strong there. No, it's the same, isn't it? Everywhere you go, you know your feet are going to be on the ground. You know if you drop something, it's going to fall. You can trust that, right? That's what I'm saying. This is the same concept. I love the words of Mary Morrissey. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. That's pretty profound, isn't that? Isn't that great? The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Butterworth writes, there is no place in all the universe where substance is any more present or any less present than right where you are. And though you can accumulate and store away material riches, there's no way that you can amass substance. In contrast to this, you could lose all of your assets in a financial crisis, but you can never lack substance. The awareness of this principle marked the difference in the crash of 1929 between those who picked themselves up and went on and those who jumped out of windows. A person who keeps conscious that the divine flow is ever centered within will find expression through him or her in the form of creative ideas, ingenuity, the will of work, and a security of work opportunities. It could be said that when you realize your relationship to the dynamic universe, you are forever in a field where you can drill for oil and bring up a gusher every time. Holmes tells us that there is a power for good in the universe and you can use it. He says that the one who wishes to demonstrate some particular good must become conscious of this particular good if he wishes to experience it. And he must make up his mind, and he must make his mind receptive to it, and he must do it consciously. So, who doesn't want more love, better health, more joy, more freedom? Okay, no one. No. Okay, we've got one hand. All right, all right. Come on, who wants more love? Who wants more health? Better health? Who wants more?
Doesn't?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said who doesn't want
Yeah, who
more.
doesn't?
So I'm not.
Oh, I see.
Well, no, who does?
Oh,
yeah, who would
okay.
like more health, more wealth? Right.
Okay.
Okay, good. Sorry. It was sort of who doesn't want that? It was kind of a sarcastic, who doesn't want that? Well, I want that, you bet. So one way to get this is to increase our expectancy. We must identify with more. A question that's often asked amongst religious scientists, and I'm sure Charlene's heard this, is how big is your bucket? Have you heard that before? How big is your bucket? What are you bringing to the well of substance? What are you bringing? Are you bringing a thimble? Are you bringing a little cup? Are you bringing a bucket? Or are you bringing a big bucket? How big is your bucket? Holmes writes in this lovely book, How to Use the Science of Mind, on page 99. I have it marked right here. We can make bigger buckets. We cannot make a bigger law. The law knows nothing about big and little. It knows to do. Since there is such a law and we are always using it, we are all receiving from life an objective equivalent to our inward mental attitudes. If we wish more, we must increase our expectancy. We must identify ourselves with more. The law, being absolute, can produce what we call a big thing as easily as what we term a small thing. The law doesn't know any difference between $1 and $1 million. Mind is a mirror, automatically reflecting our images of thought, be they good, bad, or indifferent, large, medium, or small, as we measure things. So, what do? We do our affirmative prayers, we do our treatments, but then our attitude of mind doesn't support what we're treating for, right? We'll treat for something and then we'll just kind of fall back into our negative patterns and then we'll say, gosh, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Geez, what was I thinking? Of course, the universe always says yes, so the universe is agreeing, yeah, that doesn't work because you said it didn't work. Holmes says that we must do our prayer work, release it, and then maintain an attitude, not just of expectancy, but cheerful expectancy. Of course, this is the time when some people think that you go into complete denial, but that's not the case. Remaining in that place of cheerful expectancy, but knowing that cheerfulness isn't just about being Pollyanna and playing the glad game. It's about being willing, isn't it? It's about being willing and not being resentful. not looking at what it is we don't have and feeling resentful because we don't have what we desire, but remembering in every moment, regardless of appearances out there, that we are powerful beings capable of creating what it is we desire. It means if we're going to maintain a cheerful expectancy, we must be willing to be different. We can't just treat and then not move our feet. We have to be willing to do something. We have to be willing to be different. Everyone says, I want what I want, and I want it now, but I don't want to have to do anything to get it. I don't want to have to change. But we have to be willing to be different and to act different. We must always remember that we are dealing with the law in a capital L, L-A-W. Our scientific mind treatment brings us into alignment. Remember, God never went anywhere. We are the ones that must realign with God, and we have to be willing to work with it in a way it works, and we have to be willing to do it without resentment. So, what exactly is cheerful expectancy? Expectancy is excited anticipation. Just like Suzanne was excited because she knew that when she got back on the phone with this person, it was going to be all taken care of. She just knew it was working out. She had cheerful expectancy, or determined expectancy. Anticipation, think about this. Anticipation is the bulk of your experience, isn't it? It is most of the event. In fact, it is the event, the anticipation. I heard a quote yesterday from a friend who said, better than the holiday, the day before. Because it's the anticipation. Take the Kentucky Derby.
Remember that when she complains the day before Christmas and there's work to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not go there. Take the Kentucky Derby,
Yes.
for instance. I knew Rich would like that. All of the preparation that goes into that, the training, the selecting of the horses, the previous races that those horses ran in, and the care and the training and the feeding and the vet and the travel, all the preparation, not to mention the betting, all of the handicapping and all of that. And then what? It's over in 2 minutes, right? Right? Wow. Okay, so something more simple. Think about if you're going to make yourself a cup of tea. I was thinking about this, and I thought, okay, I put the water on, and you're waiting for the tea, and it's like, come on, hurry up, boil, so I can have my cup of tea. And then you realize that is putting filling the tea kettle up, and putting it on the stove, and getting your teacup out, and your tea, and preparing it. That's the experience of having the tea. That is the experience, because, it's... You realize that it's the whole process. What are you expecting? While you wait in that anticipatory mood for the water to boil, that's really what you're experiencing. It's those in-between moments that we can actually increase our expectancy in a positive way. We can be in awe that when we turn on the faucet, that clean drinking water comes out. I mean, really, we take that for granted, but wow, I can fill this up right here in my home. I don't have to go anywhere to get the water. Wow, that's wonderful. And look at this teapot that I'm using. A dear friend gave this to me. I love this teapot. I love my friend. I mean, just taking this moment to really cherish everything about what you're doing. We can take pleasure in setting out the honey or the sugar or the cream or milk or whatever it is we're going to put into our tea. Whatever it is, so you can actually be in those anticipatory in-between moments that start to build an ongoing supportive attitude, so that when you sit down to do a scientific mind treatment, right, about something that you truly desire in your life, you don't get all flustered, you don't get all upset when it doesn't immediately appear, because we've learned to maintain that expectancy, that cheerful expectancy, but it takes practice. We've learned to love the in-betweens. We've learned to love that part. When you finally get your new iPhone or your new car, or the new baby arrives, or the long-awaited event arrives, or the water finally boils, that seems like the exclamation point. That's the excited point at the end, right? Those moments have a sweetness, but those moments are short compared to the rest of the time building up to those moments. That's not where our life is taking place, is it? Learning to love the in-betweens is a part of increasing expectancy. And if you do this, you will increase your overall level of joy. because you won't be waiting for something else to happen. You will be in the middle of what it is that's actually happening, and you will be present and alive in your life. And when you know this, embody this, and live from this perspective, you are on your way to achieving true wealth. And remembering that true wealth is a state of consciousness. The consciousness of God as our supply, and that spiritual wealth expresses as faith, as love, as wisdom, as substance, as joy, and so on. And as we increase our consciousness, we cannot help but increase our size of the bucket. Our buckets are getting bigger, the bucket that we're bringing to the well. So this month, I invite you to make a commitment to identify that which you desire, to do your affirmations, your prayer work, and then practice cheerful expectancy in every area of your life, reminding yourself to enjoy those in-between moments that make up most of our lives. Holmes tells us that here and now we are surrounded by and immersed in infinite good. How much of this infinite good is ours? How much of it is ours? Does anyone know the answer?
As much as we want.
That's right, all of it. All of it. As much as we can have, as much of it as we can embody. We can embody and increase by increasing our consciousness, which we do when we remain expectant during those in-between times. Holmes says that expectancy always speeds progress. I like that. The anticipation of a better yet to come helps dissolve the load of unbelief we now carry with us. Nothing is too good to be true. God's perfection is already an ever-present reality. It's our job to realign with God and to allow ourselves to experience, as Ernest Holmes puts it, a constant joy in expansion, an enthusiastic sense of adventure in the progressive unfoldment of spiritual awareness. It is enough to know that our good is with us today, that tomorrow this same good can be multiplied, and so on forever. And so it is.
So